For my friends abroad, Sarah and Nyambu, please, you are you are welcome to the Warm Heart of Africa via Zoom. Today's session, I think we are all aware of what we are going to do. We are having a slight topic of how can we organizing the community projects actually. So this is a 2021 cohort. They are going to introduce themselves, but for me, I'm going to introduce, I could have started with Nyasha, but I don't see if she's here, but maybe she's going to join us a bit late. But welcome, Sarah. Sarah, to those who doesn't know, Sarah is URI. She's close, more or less a sister to me because we have been working a long time. And coming to Nyambura Mudia from Kenya, she's a sister from another mother, actually, because every time we work hand in hand. Nyambura, she is a former URI Kenya, like a contact person, but she's an peace and security expert. So she is the one who is going to feed us a meal of how can we do our things today. From there, allow me to go to the cohort fellows to introduce themselves. Basically, I'm going to give them a minute to introduce, just a name, your religion background, and how excited are you to attend this session. Based on my view here, the first person is Ruhanga Elvis. So we go one by one going the other side. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I'm Elvis Ruhanga from Ntola Corporation, here in Kalonga. Yeah, today I'm so happy because I feel like I'll gain more knowledge. Thank you.
The next to you, based on the view here, is Pempo Humba. Can you please quickly introduce yourself? I think you are muted. Can you unmute yourself, or the admin? Can you unmute Pempo, please?
Yes, Pempo, you need to click your microphone button, or when you see a request. Yeah, there you go.
Hi.
Yeah, can you introduce yourself, your name and your faith background, like your religion? Then, how excited are you? Just a minute. We have only a minute.
Yeah, I'm Pempo Humba here in Shell. I'm so happy to attend this meeting so that we can learn more things here.
Which religion are you belong to? Are you a Muslim or a Christian? Or
I'm a Christian.
Thank you very much.
I'm a Christian, yeah.
Thank you very much. Next to you is Dave Pili. Dave, can you take a floor, please? 1 minute.
All right. Hi, everyone. I'm David Piri here in Mongoji, and I'm a Christian. I'm very happy and very excited to meet again on this Zoom. And I know for sure we're going to share a lot of things. Thank you.
Yeah, I can slightly jump from you going to Ibrahim Yahya. Can you please quickly introduce yourself?
Hello, everyone. Hello.
Yeah, we are hearing you, my brother. Keep going.
Yeah, my name is Ibrahim Yahya from Lilongwe, representing the Muslim community. I am very excited today because this is the opportunity for me to increase my knowledge, my understanding on various things. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much, my brother. I'm jumping to Hopkin Doka.
Geoffrey, I don't think Hopkins has connected his audio yet. Oh wait, and he's just dropped
Okay,
off.
fine. So please, Kayanja Yamikan from Palombe, come in. I think it's a network problem. I hear a certain voice below there. Yeah, hello.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hello. Hello. Yes, I'm Kayanja Mikani. Are you able to hear me?
Yeah, please, we are hearing you.
Okay, I'm Kayanja Mikani from Palombe, representing Christian CCB denomination. Thanks so much.
Thank you, my brother. I see now we are jumping to Malangu Kaira. Malangu, can you come in?
Okay, hi everyone. This is Malango Kaila, representing Christian community from Lilongwe. And I'm so excited to be here after a long time. And I hope we're going to interact and share knowledge and experience with my fellows and our guest of honor. Thank you, Mr. Coordinator, Geoffrey Manasseh.
Thank you very much. Mr. Imam Sume, can you please introduce yourself?
Okay, thank you very much. I think people can hear me.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, this is Iman Sume, representing the Muslim community from Machinga district. It's so exciting that we are meeting again today after a couple of months without physically meeting, but this is a great chance that we can take on each other wherever we are as we carry on the flag of URI in promoting peace, the interfaith peace in our communities. So hoping to learn more from this session. Thank you very much.
Welcome. So reaching this far, oh, Nyasha, you are here. I have to welcome Nyasha. Nyasha is URI Southern Africa coordinator. She is the one controlling everything here. So I hand over to her to introduce and give a sentence or two to welcome us again. Then Nyasha, when you complete, hand over to Nyambura to give a session. Just a little announcement. We have some friends who pray today. So we have to know that those guys, they are not with us today, but we are going to see how can we support them in the near future. So it's up to Nyasha now to take the floor. And please remember to hand over to Nyambura when you complete. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you so much, Geoffrey. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for attending the session. My name is Nyasha Mukaratirwa. I'm the regional coordinator of URI Southern Africa. And I'm actually happy to be attending this call. And I'm also happy about the turnout that we currently have, because I know you've taken your time from your busy schedules and it's a Saturday, and we probably meant to be resting, but you decided to come and join the Zoom call. I hope the discussion is going to be very beneficial, and going forward, I think we'll keep planning some other discussions that we can always engage with you in the near future. I think because of the interest of time, that's all I can say for now. I'll hand over to the speaker. Thank you.
Yeah, excuse me. I think someone has just joined. Esther Makalande. If she's here, please quickly introduce yourself. The speaker. Sorry for interruption. Esther, are you there? Okay, for the interest of the time. Oh, she's here. Okay, come.
Yes. It's me, Esther Magalande from Malawi, member of URI.
Yeah, so we ask to further introduce your religious background and how excited are you in 1 minute, just a minute.
Okay, I'm a Christian from Anglican Church. I'm so interested to learn a lot from this meeting. I want to know more about project planning, financial management, and many more. So I'm so excited. I believe I'll learn a lot from this meeting.
Okay, thank you very much. So the floor is already on the Nyambula's desk. Please, Nyambula.
All righty.
It's your time.
Just a minute. Sarah, I can share my screen, no? I can't.
You can't?
I don't
Okay, one moment.
Okay. Thank you. So my name is Nyambura, as my brother said. It is so nice to be in your presence. I guess Malawi remains one of the best places for my heart, especially when it comes to URI work. And it's nice to see Sarah. I've not seen her in a long time. So thank you for having me. Today, we're going to have the ABC of project management, and 30 minutes is not a time to do project management, even for small projects, you know, because there's so much we need to learn, but I hope that we can do this again, because I would want us to understand what project management is, but also hear what you guys are doing on the ground, and, you know, because there are very many, depending on the projects that you do, the different ways of managing that project. Right? So there are people who might need more information around resource management. There are people who might need more support around planning or activities, or thinking through what we call, I'm sure if some of us work in the nonprofit world, what we call the theory of change. And that is where we're going to start. 30 minutes again is not so if I rush, we'll come back, and I will leave this with you, and this is recorded. And you have questions, please do not hesitate. I am happy to look at your project and perhaps just give insights. It might take a while, but I am happy to do that. Now, when we say theory of change, it is the easiest way to understand it is, what is a problem that you want to solve? How do you want to solve it? And who might you solve it with? And if you solve it, what's the change we're going to see? So it's almost like you are conceptualizing a way of working backwards. It's like mapping a change backwards. We want to achieve 70% education for children in Malawi. What do we need to do? Who do we need to involve in that? And when you think about the theory of change, it has to be credible in that you have either learned or read a research about, you know, education in Malawi. What are the things that were working? Was it having more classes? Was it reducing fees? Was it having more parents understand the need for education? What was that, right? Achievable. The difference between people who work in communities is that what you propose to do must work. So if you say that if you employ more teachers, it must be achievable. It can't be that you're proposing that more teachers are employed, but when you look at the budget of the Malawi government, that is not possible. Supported. This is the very most important thing, because even if you propose a solution and the people you're working with, either the stakeholders, but also the people you're going to work with, like the beneficiaries, let's say sanitary pads. If your proposal is on giving recyclable sanitary pads, but then the people you are targeting are not accepting sanitary pads because they think, oh, there's no water, or they think they're backward. Then that project, that theory of change for you is not tangible. It's not gonna work. Like, because if it's not supported, it doesn't matter how good it is. If it is not acceptable or supported by your stakeholders, it's not gonna work. Testable. Can we use what you said in Malawi about provision of sanitary pads to younger girls, recyclable, and come in a village in Kenya and say, this could be done. If it can't be tested, whether within Malawi or within Kenya or outside, then most likely your theory of change is incomplete or lacking something. Now, I realize that the examples of change, of theory of changes here I used to are very, like bigger projects. But I try to simplify this, but I will read this and here. So here, listen to one theory of change, because after we understand the theory of change and how it works, it's easy for us to see the rest of the things fall in place. And if I'm going too fast, Sarah, just give me a hands up. So one of the theories of change that, because I see a lot of Geoffrey's updates. It's on agriculture and forestry and those things. So if we formalize the informal farm market sector by providing a stable fair market, so what are we doing? We want to formalize the informal farm to market sector by providing a stable fair market for horticulture crops. The other thing we're doing is transporting goods using cold storage. The other thing we will do is distribute to food buyers. Then this will improve productivity and incomes for smallholder farmers and informal vendors, and ultimately build prosperity. So we've listed the things, the strategies we're going to use, and what is the thing we're doing? We are formalizing the informal farm to market sector, right? But that sounds very chunky. So let's find a simpler one. If we build a market in our village, let's have a village. I think I have a village here, Kasungu. If you build a market, it will give smallholder farmers a place to sell their crops, which will improve their household income, which will also increase the number of children attending school, improving education in Kasungu. Does that make sense? So we have listed the strategies that we're going to employ. One, to improve the income of the household incomes of farmers in Kasungu. But as we improve the income of the farmers in Kasungu, we're improving the education for the education as a whole. Does that make sense? Now, this is why we like to see nodding. Okay. Now, this is a theory of change of energy, which I think is also complex. So let's move on, and then we will do a small test. 30 minutes again is not enough. A small test to see whether we understand theory of change. But if you forget everything I said, theory of change is realizing a problem and then working backwards in terms of, if we need to solve this problem, who do I need to involve? What are the strategies I need to employ? And how do those strategies bring the change that I want to see? After that, after you have done that, you can have a larger goal, which is it's almost like a simpler theory of change, right? But that now tells you the specific outcomes. So because I think the last session we had like this, we talked about, measurable things. And I don't want to go back to there, but when you set a goal, it's, the theory of change has told you what you want, how you're solving your problem, and who your stakeholders are. But what is your desired outcome, right? So a project goal, a project can have multiple goals. So because the theory of change, as you realize, the theories of change can be chunky, they can be many, it can be hefty. So you can break that down into goals. Like you can have 3 goals, 4 goals, depending on what your theory of change was, right? But sometimes it shows the resources needed, depending. Sometimes it also shows a timeline, right? But the purpose of a goal is to show what is the desired outcome. Like in the previous theory of change, we had desired outcomes, which was income, household income for farmers, but we also had good education for children, right? So an example of a goal here is, e.g., plant 3,000 trees in order to reduce loss of fertile land and increase food production by 10% by June 2025, right? So this goal has what you're doing, the number of trees you want to build, you want to plant, right? But what is it doing? It means that you will increase food. It has a timeline. Increase food, but also just not increase food. I'm sorry. Now I'm tapping in my mother tongue. And haphazardly, I wanted to say Kindozo, which is my mother tongue. Yeah, but it's at 10% by which year? 2025. Now, after we understand goals, and again, because this is a 30-minute class, I think we should just condense things to one thing. So let's go to project management. But do we have, if you have a question, please put it on the chat, right? So let's think about project planning as a whole, as a large thing. What's the first thing if let's say you want an interfaith project around security or crime, the first thing you will do is identify stakeholders. Who are you working with? Do you need teachers? Do you need, remember, this is guided by your theory of change and your goal. So depending on the change you want to see, who do you need to involve for you to see that change? So who are the stakeholders? Do you need teachers? And if you need teachers, what are they coming to do? Do you need police officers? And if you need police officers, what are they coming to do? But also, when we look at the stakeholders, what are their roles and responsibilities? So that you're not just having people in a room who just sit to, listen to Geoffrey and Sarah and Nyasha. You actually have people who have roles. Like when people show up for your meetings, they actually have roles, because that is how you promote a buy-in in the community. If you have stakeholders that do not have roles, nobody wants to be there for the sake of being there. Actually, if you have people for the sake of having there, they usually create problems because they want, things to do. One, they will want a part of the budget, they will want to speak, and maybe they're speaking about things that they do not know. So who are your stakeholders? Mostly when you have stakeholders, you want roles and responsibility, but also what is their expertise? And even if it's not formal expertise, what can they bring? Because there are people who come with other people. You might need a chief because you need to reach to the DC. So you need to think through that. But also hold off kickoff meetings. And kickoff meetings are not just with stakeholders. You have to go to the villages, or if you're having a project that targets schools, education, you need a kickoff meeting so that allows the whole community, the bigger community, to buy into your projects. So, and this is one of the most important things. Do not just call people and tell them you will be doing this. Please remember to, one, accept feedback from people, but two, involve people from the beginning. That way, when people buy into a project, the sustainability is longer, right? Define the scope. You might be, when you say women, when you say your project is about economic empowerment for women, who are these women? Is it everyone? Is it the old women, or is it the younger women also? Or is it women who are from what are they called? Female-headed households, right? Like, who are these women? What's your scope? And when you say in Kasongo village or in another village, is it the whole village, or is it you will be working with 300 women or perhaps 25 women, right? And why the scope is important is because it helps you think through the resources that are needed. Sometimes it's easy for you to start with a smaller project, like of 20 women, and then those 20 women can start their own groups to reach other 20 women. But when you do, let's say 400 women at the same time, one, your resources are strained. Two, you're likely not to have a good quality of projects. But also, what is your timeline? If it's most projects, you want a project that goes to the cycle of, especially community projects, you want shorter projects timelines, because you want to be able to learn quickly, but also adapt the learnings. So if you have a project that is running to 2 years or 18 months, unless you really have the money you're going to strain, and two, the quality of your project is going to be very poor. So as much as possible, please try and have a shorter project timeline, especially around the budget, because if you have a small budget and you want to do 1 year, you will perhaps, have to let go a lot of, what is it called? Quality. Set and prioritize goals, right? Maybe the priority in your community now is not, I don't know, Geoffrey, let me use this because you can deal with me later. It's not planting trees. Maybe the priority right now is provide food, like, food to eat at this point, right? So communities don't respond to things that they don't see as priorities. So set your priorities as goals, one, when you're imagining your project, but also when you're planning your projects, what are the first things to do? Because if you don't have a priority list, you tend to do things haphazard. Today you're seeing the chief, but you had not seen, and you wanted to have the sheikh accompany you, but you had not spoken to the sheikh, right? So have a priority list so that you know how to schedule. And also, if you had time, I would show you what we call the log frame. How every activity fits into the other, right? This is a bit technical, where we said define deliverables, right? Like, what is your deliverable? And I know this can be a bit technical, but if you forget anything else, a deliverable is a product or a result, right? Or a capability. Like, if you have trained people, so if you have trained people for, let's say, interfaith dialogue is very abstract. Let's say you have trained people on countering violent extremism, right? So the training itself, how many people have you trained? So if the training itself is not the deliverable, training 30 people on violent extremism is a deliverable. So what is the thing that you have done, right? What is a tangible thing that if you're reporting to someone, they ask you, so what did you do with the money? You can actually say, this is what we did, right? Like specific things. It's something that improved people's life. It's something that it's a result. It's related to change, other than saying, oh, we went to Kasungu and met. If you met religious leaders, that is not a deliverable. That's an activity. It does not directly contribute your impact. You have to show what that activity, that deliverable, that activity did, and that's what we call a deliverable. Create a project schedule. This is the easiest. Okay, the project schedule says that you know where to start. The things that we just listed ahead, you know where to start. What is your first step? Is your first step mobilizing, or is your first step getting the money? If you have the money, is the first step, have you done the budget, and how does it look like, right? Like, what are the steps? What are the activities that are needed to complete this project, and how do they look like, right? And do you have resources when you list your project activities? Do you have the money, and do you have the people? Because you might say you have a training, but then you don't have a resource person, which means that during the resource, even if you mobilize people and you do not have the resource person, it goes nowhere, right? And what extra information is needed that you don't have, right? Or what other things do you need to know? Like what Geoffrey said, some people cannot be in this meeting because they're 7 days, right? And there are times you slot times to train people, but then it's around the prayer time for Muslims. Like what more information do we need when you're conceptualizing our projects, right? Also, this is one of the things that we don't do most of the times, and it costs us. What are the risks? Like if you're planting trees in Malawi and then there's floods, did you see it coming, right? Or the occurrence of droughts, like did you see it coming and did you mitigate it? Because if you were planting trees and what Geoffrey, what do you do when you plant trees and that one? when you take them Well, you
No,
take them
actually, we
to the land. It's called
yeah, we transplant to the land. We transplant to the land.
Yes, transplant.
Yeah.
Yes. When you transport them and there is sun, have you made space for water pots? What are they called? Water centers, water spots, right? So what are the risks around your project, and how have you mitigated it? If you're making sanitary pads and the cloth you use might run out, what have you done to mitigate that, right? If your project uses electricity, like today we don't have electricity, right? So the mitigation would be buy bundles, so that even if lights go off today, I will still be able to come to the meeting, right? So what are the risks around your project, and how can you mitigate them? Because most of the times that's how projects, dwindle and do not perform, because we do not think about risks. Communicate the project plan. It is one thing to have a project plan, but if you don't communicate it to the people who are working with you, it's not going to work. So people need to know what their places are, but also if you need more help from your stakeholders, like I keep saying, for community projects, we usually need to meet the chief or meet the women leader. If you do not communicate your project plan, you think there's no buy-in, but it's because people do not know their places. So always communicate your project plan. One, it promotes buy-in, and secondly, it helps you in terms of people are learning themselves through their tasks, right? Which is delegation. This is the same thing. So I'll because we have spoken about it and we are short of time, I'll just leave it there, and it will come with the what is it called? It will come with the presentation. Things fall apart. Okay. Activities. I mentioned about activities, right? It is very important that we understand activities, because when you understand activities, in terms of the activities that might take into the project schedule, you're able to plan to have a project schedule that speaks to what you're doing. So an activity is typically one stage of project management, right? Like when you do one thing, it allows you to do the next. So it's very hard for you to train if you have not mobilized, right? So the first activity would mobilize young people in this village, and then the second thing would be perhaps develop a training curriculum, and then after that it would be plan the training, right? And there's planning the training, there's logistics and other things. So please understand or be able to, I hope when I explain this, you're able to differentiate between activities and how to differentiate them. So because that is what helps you to have, I don't want to use the word the logic framework, but yes, that is what helps you see the sequence of your project. Taken together as a series, the activities will result into the final deliverable. Remember what I said, you traveled to a city, but after traveling to that city, you just didn't travel. Like traveling is an activity, but until you train, that is when it becomes a deliverable, right? So activities help you think, so which activities are tied to the deliverable? You can have 7 activities, but you only have one deliverable, right? So that helps you think through. So also, because you don't want to invest in too many activities that are giving you small deliverables, or what we call an impactful deliverable. So knowing your deliverables helps you arrange and maximize your budgets. Because again, imagine if I traveled to Malawi to just give this, imagine, right? It is a serious activity, but then when it comes to the deliverable, it doesn't match up. And so even if it's a donor who is giving you money, they'll be like, you are not very wise, because this would have been done through Zoom, as much as I would have wanted to come to Malawi, right? So you have to look at your activities and how those activities are related to your deliverables. So examples of activities is training workshops, street shows, rallies, etc. Staff selection, like this, you see what I said, staff selection is an activity, but it's not necessarily a deliverable. Does that make sense? Man, I wish this class, as much as I said I didn't want to come to Malawi, I wish this was a physical, but yeah, staff selection is an activity, but it's not necessarily a deliverable. Now, a baseline or an end line is an activity that ties directly to a deliverable. Because when you have a baseline, that is how you go and make your reports. So if you have an activity that is called a baseline, where you ask questions, where you send surveys, right? Then this is tied to a deliverable. This is tied to the staff selection is an activity that is very far to prove into a deliverable, but is needed. I hope I'm not confusing you. I hope we make the difference between activities and not necessarily deliverables. Other activities are conferences, meetings, articles, and publications, right? Now, tracking and monitoring. No matter how good your project is, we will never believe you if we can't track it, right? And we can't see your change. So tracking and monitoring a project is very important. So I think we've spoken about deliverables, but I think for me, the question would be, in every of your projects, ask yourself, how do I know that I have made the change that I want to see, right? So how do I know? Is it when I see trees growing, or when people transplanting, why do I keep saying transporting? Transplanting trees, or is it when I see, let's say for even it's an education project, do I know that my project has had the change it needed to have when I see more students in school, or less crime in the villages, or more interfaith dialogues? So what is that? What does success look to you, right? And that's what those are the things you'll be looking for when you are tracking and monitoring your projects. And I'm sure you have heard about the SMART, be realistic. These things need to be realistic. They need to be measurable goals, right? And we spoke about goals in terms of you have to know tangibly what are you looking to see. But one of the things you need to do is also meet regularly with team and stakeholders. Ask your stakeholders, the religious leaders you're working with, or the police officers you're working with. If you're working on a crime project, ask. Like, okay, so how are we doing? Are we still getting a lot of young people in the nights drinking and smoking? Have the fights gone down, right? Like, ask, because I know for most community projects, we don't have the resources to have, what other nonprofits would have in terms of monitoring their success. So, but ask, have meetings, and in the next slide, we will talk about focus groups and how those ones are. But ask, but also have a deadline, so that if something is working, you have a deadline. But if it's also not working, you're not extending your resources, you're not using more money and more of your energy and time in something that is not working. So have deadlines, but also support transparency, so that if the stakeholders you're talking to think something is not working, you said if you train young men to make things and sell them, crime will go down, but it's not. If you do not give people a chance to come to you and tell you this method is not working, then your efforts are too futile. So transparency is the easiest way to get community feedback. So have meetings. So that is tracking. That is tracking when you're within the project, right? Like when the project is still running. Evaluation comes later. We have finished a project. Have we achieved our goal? And if there are factors, remember the risk factors we talked about. If there are risk factors that we had seen, did they hinder our success? And if so, or not? And if so, what can we do, right? What can we do to avert them next time for the second cycle? If you had a Kasungu project and now you want to go to another village, what if you had anticipated the risk factors, did you mitigate them rightly, or did they get the better of you? If there are projects that you have, but then let's say like the market one, they're building a market. Maybe for you just needed farmers to get extra income, right? Like, or get a place where they can sell their wares and have household income. But you realize because of the market, now other kiosks are coming around. Like we have sorry, I forget I'm not in Kenya. Kiosks are food shops. What are they called? The food shops that form around the markets, right? Like we have, it's boda a real thing in Malawi. Okay. So because of the motorbikes, because of the market, now we have boda motorbike people who now employed, right? Or we have kiosks, food kiosks where people can come and eat around the market. So you didn't intend to provide employment for the God, what about motorbike people, and you did not intend for the food, grocery places, their kiosks, right? Everywhere in Africa, the kiosks. Anyway, yes, to come up, but they did. That is, you didn't intend that change to come, but it came. It would be very nice if you captured that change, right? Because that is not what you intended to do, but it's as a result of what you did with the markets. So it is very important that even if you had not seen you had not seen an outcome when you are conceptualizing a project, if there are positive outcomes, please have them on your reports. Now, this is technical, but just in case there's someone who has a technical project, I put this in. And so when you're reporting, you want to report in terms of a language that allows us to see where you started and where you are. So outcome evaluation is like, how did what you did affect the target population, your target population in terms of progress, right? So is it improved access to something? That's how you measure outcome. It's improved, increased. Those are the words you use. And if you had more time, you would do an exercise that shows us, like you'd say what your project is, and then we'd look at your outcomes, because the only way you get more money, and the only way you get people believing in what you're doing is this part. If I can see that, if you say that you are providing training for young people, I need to see how improved their lives. So there's a way you conceptualize the language you use, right? It's either in numbers, but also what we call descriptives, the narratives, which is this language, improved access to social services. It could be in education or in health, right? Improved access to resources, right? Or time, right? Or sometimes it's not improved access to, it's, let's say in Kenya we have elections and young people are not able to talk about governance and political participation, but URI has provided a space where youth can come and debate around these things, but also talk about elections in their villages. So what have you done? You have provided a political space. So sometimes it's those things. And there are things you can describe in numbers, but there are things you have to use word like improved, increased knowledge. And so please note the language that we use, because this is the language that gets you more money. It's also the language that makes people believe in you. And remember, this is what you promised in the theory of change and go. Now, tools of monitoring. Sorry, I'm not able to see your text, but I'll see them shortly. Tools of monitoring. There are very many ways of monitoring these things, and some of them are very easy. And the easy ones is what I wrote here. The rest we will discuss in the second class, or next time we meet. Or please, as I say, please, I am happy to look at your projects. Now, surveys. Surveys, if you use Google documents, you can make a survey for yourself. You just go to Google and it allows you to make a survey for yourself. And it's very easy because it's step by step. You just have to write questions and then send us the link and we shall see the questions that you have. And usually these ones are very, like if you want to know why girls still prefer non-recyclable pads, right, to recyclable to reusable. This is one of the tools that you could use is this, because then it allows them to pick questions, answers of yes and no, but also give you descriptives, and it's anonymous, right? Key informant interviews. So you use that data that you collect to look at, okay, we did this project, and this is what our target beneficiaries are telling us. So it's very nuanced. You can be able to improve or know what is working. Key informant interviews. We talked about stakeholders, right? Like, so the chief and the teacher are not in the dailiness of running your project, right? They do not come every day, but they're the people who get information. If your project was about reducing SGBV, gender-based violence, a chief is likely to hear when a woman or a child has been violated. So if your project was on SGBV, one of the people that a few people who tell you whether the incidences of violence have gone down is the chiefs, women leaders, the police, the gender, the focal point at the gender, the police office, right? So these are the people you talk to, but this, what we call this ones is key informant interviews, where you see to the people who are stakeholders, who are not necessarily beneficiaries. Beneficiaries are the people I think I explained this in the beginning. Beneficiaries are people who are benefiting from your project directly, right? But these are others are stakeholders. So stakeholders can give you enough insight about is your project working or is it not working? And you can just have 5 questions and they can be written on a paper. And you ask questions and answer, and you ask questions and then prod. You know, like how journalists on TV do. You know, they ask you one question and then they prod. Is it, you know, is this true? Would you say that from April 2015, 2021, after this training has been, and we have male champions in the village, SGBV incidences have gone down, right? And then ask, what do you think? You know, why do you think is this so? What strategies is working best? Is it the men? Is it the women? So key informant interviews, you can make those questions yourself and actually just walk in with a book and a pen. Focus groups. Focus groups is when let's say your project was, again, let me use the sanitary pads projects. When you have women who are using the sanitary pads, right? Like the young girls who are using the sanitary pads, you want to understand why the uptake is not too high, like why they're not using them as they should, or why people are not participating as Geoffrey had thoughts on planting trees and transplanting them. What you do is you take a sample of, not everyone, a sample of your beneficiaries. Like let's say if your beneficiaries were 30, you take 10. Sit down with them and ask them the same questions. You know, ask them, so what do you like about, you know, the reusable pads? What don't you like about the reusable pads? What would or produce these things to, right? And then use that to write a report in terms of what is working, why is it working, and what is not working, and why is it not working, right? So that you get a nuance from, you remember the impact I told you, the numbers, and they improved. Now you have a more, your meat has more meat. I don't know what I'm saying. Your bone has more meat, right? Now you have a more nuanced, a more fleshy story to tell, because now you actually have the perspectives, first-hand perspective. One of the things that we forget to do is use the registration and attendance sheets as in reporting. That's the only way you can prove that you actually trained 30 people. If you say, oh, we trained 30 people, but I can't see the attendance sheet, I'm sorry, I don't think you trained them. So use the registration sheets, use the attendance sheet. Like today, I mean, it's good we have 13 participants. Can we have that? Can we have a screenshot? If it was a Zoom call, have that screenshot, right? So that actually, when you say we trained 13 people, we can actually see it was 13 people, right? So record these things for yourself. Reporting, take good pictures, right? Please take good pictures and do not, remember, some moments cannot be caught. How I know about Geoffrey's work or the sanitary pads work is because I see the pictures, right? So some pictures tell 1,000 words. I don't know. I don't use those things, but yes, pictures tell good stories. So please take good pictures. Again, there's no need of using all the things that we said if you can't use anecdotal. If you tell me improved hygiene, yeah, it's nice. But if you tell me that I am a girl with improved hygiene, now goes to school and is more confident, you know, and is able to assert herself against SGBV, I mean, that's a story because it has emotions. I can think about a person. It makes it human. So tell a story. Use anecdotes. Sometimes, depending on what you're working with, you should be very careful in using names because we do not want to use people's real name in very sensitive issues. I think one of the things that we learned in URI and in other places, I'm sure, is do no harm. So be very careful how you use people's names. As much as use anecdotes, I will say as a thumb rule, it's always nice to use pseudonyms, names that don't belong to those people, right? Change people's names. I think that is so that you're not getting into trouble, but you're not also exposing people. Also, when you take pictures, because we're Africans, I think I will say this, when you take pictures, do not take away the dignity of people. Like there are people we work with and they're in abject poverty. I keep saying, do not show children's faces in abject poverty. Do not show women and children in places of violence, because that victimizes them. So as much as we want good pictures, we don't want pictures that take away the dignity of people when you're reporting. So be very careful. Use good pictures, but be very careful how you portray your target beneficiaries, right? Remember, you're there to protect them. You're there to build them, not cause them further harm. The other thing that works, and I think this is also very famous, is what significant changes stories. Like, so in your report, when you're writing your reports, have a summary of three significant changes, like talk about someone who's not going to school because they couldn't access school fees, but with $100 investment for their mother, now they're able to go to school. Have those ones, right? Like have a bullet point where when I read your report, I can see the most significant changes, right? And remember, we use the word like improved or number of people, or use something that I can actually measure, maybe not tangibly, not quantitatively like numbers, but sometimes but sometimes it's the quality, right? Because your change is you're showing change from one place to the other. So I think that should be the end of my presentation, and I'm happy to take questions. Did I keep time? I think I did.
Nyambura, thank you so much. Gosh, just so much incredible information there. And just, I think we were all putting in the chat our enthusiasm of following and, comments about the bodas and the kabanza and the local examples. But Geoffrey, I see you're unmuted. Sorry, I just wanted to fill the silence, but you go ahead.
No, I think she has stopped where we need some people to come with the questions. So that's why I was about to silent a bit to give a space for the people who have questions. But otherwise I have something to comment on how she presented. Thank you. Do we have any question, guys? Hello? Any question, any comment towards the presentation?
Hello.
Hello?
Hello.
Esther, come. Yeah, you can come in.
Okay, thank you so much for the wonderful presentation. I have learned a lot, but I have a question. My question is on what if you are conducting a long-term project where the results cannot be seen at the same time? So on reporting, how are you going to report on the deliverables, on the impact? How are you going to report on the impact while the impact cannot be seen on the same time? You can conduct a training, but the result of the training cannot be shown on the same time. It takes a long time. So what can you do on reporting? That's my question.
Okay. So thank you. So I'm imagining your project is more than 3 months and perhaps let's say 12 months. So one of the things that you want to do when you start a project, especially things that are about imparting knowledge or capacity building, is that you want to have a baseline before you start the training. So a baseline is a set of questionnaires that helps you understand where the people are in terms of knowledge, right? So before the training, it could be that they had a 30% threshold of knowledge about what you're training. Let's say you're training on sexual reproductive health rights. So before your training, your target group had a 30% threshold of knowledge. Now, after the training, one, the question I would ask, are there other activities of the training? Like they're supposed, are they training and going home, or are they training and training others? But however, you're supposed to have a midline. If it's a long project, let's say 12 months, then you could have a midline to check on how is this knowledge that you impacted affecting the daily choices around sexual reproductive health rights, right? If then it's, a project that just needs a baseline and an end line, whenever your project is ending, let's say it's after 12 months, you need to do an end line, which shows after training and 12 months of other things. It could be they trained on other things like economic empowerment. No, the particular thing that you want to see, which is the sexual reproductive health rights learning, that's when you do another end line to see this is how behavior, because you don't do training for the sake of training, you do training for things like behavior change, right? So you will have an end line which helps you track, is there behavior change within the community or the people that you trained. So for trainings, the best things to do is what we call baselines, midlines, and endlines, right? So that you track how the knowledge that you impacted is helping people in their lives. I hope I have answered you. Esther. I can't hear you, my dear.
Thank you so much.
Okay.
Thank you. You have
I hope
answered me.
I hope you know how to develop a baseline. Yes.
Not that much.
Okay. And there are tools on Google that you can find, right? Depending
Okay.
on what your training curriculum is, it's easy to find what questions you want. And they don't have too many questions. They can be 5 questions, but they help you understand how much do people know about what you're training, right? And how does that affect their life after 3 months or after 6 months, right?
Okay, thank you.
Yes, and Sarah is saying that they have some resources around these things. So yes.
Thank you.
You're most welcome.
Your hand, Dave, is up. If you have a question, can you please fire out?
Okay. Thank you very much, Nyambura, for the very good presentation. And I've followed everything which you have spoken. And I just want to know the distinguishing point between deliverables and the activities. I just want to understand better on that. Thank you.
So what we said is you can have 13 activities. Like one of the examples we gave was where you train your staff how to handle the projects. That's not a deliverable. The deliverable will be when you train your target group. You have a curriculum development, right? And you have trained your target group on a particular thing, and you can actually see the results, right? Like when you have trained religious leaders how to mediate in community conflicts, that is a deliverable. But before, for that deliverable, you might have had 7 activities. But the deliverable you were looking for is training religious leaders on skills on mediation, right? So activities before that would have been transport, like you transported them, you brought them to a village or a workshop, right? But you also looked for funds, right? Like there can be very many activities, but those activities do not necessarily become a deliverable. A deliverable happens when you have involved your target group, but also we can see how that contributes to the outcome or the change that you want. Does that make sense? So most of us tend to have a lot of activities that do not necessarily pour into the deliverable. And that is why a donor will come and say, oh, we like your project, but it is not making sense financially, because you have a lot of activities that are consuming money but that it's not necessarily contributing to the deliverable, right? And that is why we realize that your project is not smart, right? As an example, is if I traveled for this training to Malawi, that makes sense, right? But the deliverable is we actually had a training on project management, but the arranging, the researching, because I researched before this, the conversation between Sarah and Geoffrey, those are activities, but it's not a deliverable. We can't tell a donor, oh, and we had, we met on Saturday, we also, that they don't care about that. It is nice to see them, but what they care about is this deliverable, this training, and how it impacted the young people in Malawi. Does that make sense?
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. Also.
Yeah, if we have some people who have some questions or comment, please. Oh, I see a hand of Ibrahim Yahaya. Ibrahim, it's your time.
Thank you so much, Nyambura, for the wonderful presentation. I just wanted to know, when you're doing a project and then you reach the part of monitoring and evaluation, do you need an external entity or an internal entity to do that part? Bearing in mind that maybe you can be biased when it comes to results. So I just wanted to know that. Thank you.
Okay. So two things. I think for my organization, sometimes we have a consultant, depending on how huge the project is. But I don't think you'll have bias because, I think personal bias, yes, but I don't think, unless someone is outrightly lying, it's not possible to, because the results are, you ask people questions and you report what they said, right? Like you administer a survey, you answer, you use what they said to make your report. So I would say maybe not because of bias, because audits are different. Audits are when a donor comes and says, oh, you said you did this, let's see whether you actually did it. Audits are different because donors will want to verify that actually what you said you did, right? So audits are different. But I think the only reason you'd have an external person, an M&E person, is when you don't have the capacity. Because for most community-based projects, you have the capacity, because as we said, it's focus groups, it's surveys, it's the little things. But when you have a bigger project, like say a project that has $50,000 or $20,000, you might want to involve someone because one, the log frameworks that are used to, report such projects are more complex, and no one in your organization might have that knowledge at that point, right? And so when you're making your budget, I think this is important to say, when you're making your budget, and it's a project that has, a tangible amount of money or tangible tasks, always have a budget line for M&E. Usually, I think for the longest time it was 10%, and then it went to 25% now, because donors are making sure that they want to see your reports. So always make a budget for M&E, even within the simple project budgets. Always have a 500 or something, because you might be good in executing it, but not very good in running an M&E schedule. Have I answered you, Ibrahim?
Yeah, you have answered very well. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, if we still have some people, I think we have maybe 10 minutes or 5 minutes to complete, but we cannot stop the questions. Otherwise, we give a space to people to give their questions and comments. Do we have anyone? I hope, Nyambura, you are going to send us the presentation.
I am right away.
Okay,
right,
thank you.
Geoffrey.
I know, I
Yeah,
think
so-
Malonga had a question in the chat about, sexual and reproductive health specifically. I know she said that the question was answered, but I'm wondering if there's more to that question that Malonga you'd like to ask.
Okay, can you hear me? Hello?
Yes, we can.
Okay, thank you. Yes, I had a question on sexual reproductive health, right? So yeah, for example, here in Malawi, like a lot of organizations are focusing on SRH, especially on behavior change and communication between parents and their children, on the use of condoms. Maybe if they talk about sex with the children and everything, because of what is happening, like the teen pregnancies, early marriages, things like those. So like if you have a project on behavior change and communication to see if parents are really communicating with their children on the use of condom, on issues related to SRH. So how can you determine the interventions or the impact to really see if the children and parents are really communicating and there's change to that.
Sorry, Kaira, please repeat the last part of your question. How can we?
I mean, how can you determine the results of your interventions to see if there's change between parents and children, to see if they're really communicating with their children on issues relating to SRH.
Okay, so two things. I think depending on whether it's a complex project or a simple project, I would go back for what we shared earlier. I think for me, one, it's that it's illegal to talk to children directly without their guardians, right? So you have to know that. But I think the best thing that you could do at this point is a focus group, with key stakeholders, which are teachers and their parents themselves, but also other so the people who are working in the Ministry of Youth or Children, right? So I think for me, depending, I would need more information because that's a very specific question, but I think key informant interviews would go a long way, right? Because or surveys would be good, but only for young adults, right? Who are above the age of where you have to seek consent. And most of that would be descriptive. I think most of your results would be descriptive in terms of narratives and not numbers, right? So what the results you see is improved communication between parents, but also because I know the question of sex education is very controversial in many countries. You don't want to find yourself in a place where you speak about the use of condoms for young children, if that is something that will get you in trouble. Like because you will have to substantiate what that is. So for me now, I would say the safest place you have for M&E in writing a report is using descriptives, right? Like improved, increased. But the best way to get that information, I would say, is focus groups and key informants interviews, where you have the stakeholders who deal, or like the teachers, the first responders in SRH. That would be the best. But I think it would be hard for you to get information directly from the children. I don't know because I know it's a sensitive area for everyone working in behavioral change for children, because you can never interview a child alone, right? So that already causes biases in terms of the information you get, because a child will not tell the truth in the presence of the parents. So I would say focus groups and key informant interviews.
All right, thank you. Well understood.
Otherwise, research, a full-fledged research, which is expensive, my dear. So, yeah.
All right.
Yeah, I think you are, Nyambura, you hammered the head of a nail. I think the only challenge is the word child. I don't know how age can we have in our mind, the age level, because I would come inside and say the focus group discussion has been very fruitful in Malawi, based on my experience. When we bring, but my example should go up to 12 above, not below. When we gather number of them, especially girls, because in Malawi I see like many young girls doesn't have enough space to discuss their concerns, their ideas. So when we gather them and we bring some questions and we get reflection from them, slowly I've been seeing them, having strong to challenge some of the community norms, which has been putting them down. So I really recommend what you have said about the focus group discussion, because it only helps them to understand themselves first and bring out the concerns which they have. So we take it from there. As they grow responsibly, and they are at least able to be in a level of high meetings and air out what they concern them. And this has bring slightly changes in the community. But below the age of 10 going down, actually it will be somehow difficult, like you have put on already. It needs a guardian or a parent to be attached to the conversation, something which cannot be open enough to anyone. Yeah. Thank you very much. I'm not sure if you have another question or comment, because our time's almost fly out.
Jeffrey, I've sent the presentation. I might need a few editing, but for now I've sent it, and then I've sent it on the chat.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm going to send it will help us, because if we have another question, maybe I can lace out to you so you can answer at any point of time. Sarah, before I conclude everything, your words.
Thanks, Jeffrey. And yeah, I just want to say thank you, Nyambura. I've been scribbling away, taking notes as well, and have learned so much, particularly just for me, one of the key value takeaways was the importance of having shorter timelines with projects that make it successful, so that everybody feels a sense of it's just so important for people to feel a sense of success when we're kind of working with different communities. And if we embark on these long projects and with very ambitious goals and that don't actually get achieved, it can lead to people kind of going, well, what are they doing? This isn't making a difference. And so just seeing that, that was just one key takeaway that I want to say. And before everybody goes, just speaking of evaluations and impacts, we do have a very short evaluation form, which is a tool that Nyambura referred to, a Google form. And I think as a follow-up to this, it might be good to do a demonstration on how to create a Google form so that you can use it in your own. Yeah, exactly, in your own session. So if you have 2 minutes after this to click on the link and fill out the form, that would be super helpful for us. But Jeffrey, I want to say thank you to you for coordinating this incredible group, and it's been wonderful to meet everybody or see the faces that are here. And maybe we could, again, speaking of photos and reporting, if you want to turn on your camera, if you can, turn on your video for a moment and we'll just take a screenshot. Oh, and we've got a little visitor, Hopkins. Wonderful. Turn on your camera if you can. I know it's a lot of data, we'll be super quick. And on the count of 3, smile for the camera. I love those of you who are wearing your URI t-shirts. It's lovely to see. Okay, 1, 2, 3, smile. Perfect. Okay, Jeffrey, I'm done. Back to you.
Thank you very much, Sarah. I go back to Nyambura. Thank you, Nyambura, for a very fantastic presentation. No, you made my day. You see, I learned a lot even from your presentation. We are going to use that. I like most the way you draw a thin line between activities and deliverable goals. Some sense of results and whatever activity we do. Sometimes we keep doing things, doing, and it doesn't bring any impact in the community. And you also touch the smart, doing things smartly. That has also opened our eyes. We learned a lot. We are going to apply, because it's not just a matter of learning, but it's a process. We are going to apply and see how we can make it usable. You touched a certain sentence to say how you wish we have a physical meeting. Yeah, even myself, I could love to have a physical meeting, you know, because that's when we give so many examples, we have enough time, we have even physical feeling. So because of the technology and the funds and all this kind of stuff, we really appreciate what you have done. When we give a space for the fellows to choose, we had so many people thought of proposal lighting, how to report, so many things. But because we use a criteria of voting, so I can say 90% of people vote for community project planning and all this stuff. So that's why we have this topic today, but you have to know that we still have something covered somewhere, which maybe in time coming, we are going to look into how to write a proposal, a good proposal actually, and how to report, because you touched something about report, but in a quickly format. We need some details. Yeah. Thank you for all these things. I also appreciate, Sarah, you had your time with us here. Yeah, thank you very much. And all the fellows, 2021 fellows, I hope we really enjoy this. Due to time, we are not having extra minutes ahead. I should just say thank you very much for now. Bye for now. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, guys.